what are the sectors that you believe are doing better in this matter of energy and in the matter of green skills? What sectors are doing, or need more speed on this one? We can start with you, Maria.
Yes. First, thank you all. Thank you, Segreira, for this invitation, also to CNI. We've been working together on this Green Jobs and Green Skills working group at SBCOP, which is fantastic. It's important to see how much we're engaged on the private sector on such an important topic, which for me is the backbone of all the transition. And I'm happy to see that we are starting to talk more about green jobs because we are starting to bring people to the center of the discussion. But we also see that the gap is still huge, right? Let's say. I will bring some figures just for us to clarify, even though we do have some sectors that are advancing on it, the gap is huge. So only 17, right, it's part of the outcomes of our working group, only 17% of the global workforce already have the skills that we need for this green transition. And up to 50% of the green skills and green jobs that we have nowadays will need to be reskilled. So we have a journey, right? The opportunity that we have in terms of business generation is fantastic. When we're talking about Amazonia and about Brazil, it's even bigger. But the gap, we need to work on the gap, right? But talking about sectors, I always say that the industrial sectors, they are forced, right? So they have no choice. I cannot say that they are advanced, but I can say that they are leading part of it because of their needs, right? We can see in Brazil, for example, that we are much more advanced in some specific technologies. For example, renewable energy, right? Solar, wind, bioeconomy. So we are advanced because we do need and we do have this capability, right? Because of our natural resources. Another one, it's biofuel, bioenergy. So we are also leading, we are advancing on it. But again, the point for me, and I think that it's part of what we need to talk and to keep traction on the discussions that we are having, it's how we are going to stop being forced to skill our people, our teams, and when we're starting to plan that. So we need to be prepared, as we say, for a just transition, because it's not only about training people and having the automatized jobs, but how we prepare also the economic and social impact for the communities. So it's much more about that.
Very good. So certainly industrials, as you say, are forced. They need to go. They need to reduce their costs, and their costs, to reduce this, one of these opportunities is around the energy efficiency. But then they have the challenge of this skilled people.
Yes, and we are being forced, and also the technology it's forcing us, the advancement of the development of technology. For example, biofuels in Brazil. So we are prepared, much more prepared for that. So just some examples.
Very clear. So you give, basically you talk about the sectors where we have this challenge. What I like very much, Alan, I will turn to you, is you have the possibility to have data, because you know how this is evolving in the last year, and you have the possibility with this data to do some projections. So I would like to ask about you on how you see the future and what are these gaps that you have been observing.
Thank you, and thanks for having us. It's been great working with SBCOP and you all on the project. So LinkedIn, basically the story for us, we have just over 1 billion members in the LinkedIn network. They all have profiles. Probably many of you have profiles. It's possible to analyze that data as well as the data from job listings that people post on LinkedIn to begin to measure supply and demand differences, as well as to understand which skills should be called green skills, and what the hiring rates are for green skills, people with green skills versus people with skills, just skills which are not specifically green ones. So just a few factors. As you mentioned at the beginning, one of the key pieces is that the growth in demand for green skills is accelerating at about twice as fast as the growth of the supply. So that means that we are not actually close to closing the gap, rather that gap continues to open. And that is something which has certainly been a big motivation for us in doing this work. I wanted to separate the world into two pieces. Piece number one is a set of jobs which essentially need to transform in order to be part of the post-carbon economy. And then there's a set of new jobs which have never existed before, which need to be filled. So one of the great things about the first set is that the difference between a green accountant and a non-green accountant is actually only a small set of skills around understanding reporting, understanding managing, measuring greenhouse gases, and being able to report effectively on those things. It's not a big difference. And that is actually one of the places that companies have made one of the biggest contributions, and especially companies which are appearing here at COP, because companies can do that retraining internally without having to bring on whole new workforces. It's much cheaper to train people to take on those additional skills. So the good thing is that is actually the majority of the changes and the skills that need to be acquired is in roles like this, and there are hundreds of examples of that. The accountant being one of them. The harder thing is when you try to bring people into brand new areas. So if you're trying to figure out a way to to create whole new groups of people who are ready to work in renewable energy with brand new renewable energy technology. If you're looking for people who are experienced in battery manufacture, and there's a whole long list of these, those are much harder to actually make happen. And they also represent a gigantic, to your point, a gigantic opportunity for growth. Because we need to have people doing those jobs, and they tend to be good jobs. We need to have them doing those jobs so that we can make the transition in time to be able to hit the targets we would all like to hit. So thinking about those two things separately, the kinds of industries that I would focus on would be everything in the renewable energy space, as well as in the electrical vehicle space. These are places where those industries, to your point, basically have been compelled to train new people and bring new people into the world, right? And then the second thing is that in places where reporting requirements are there, things like green accounting become incredibly valuable, and people train for those. The takeaway for me on all of this is that as much as I would love to see the entire economy move forward in lockstep towards generating these skills, it is much more likely that companies will take the effort necessary to do this when they actually feel that it is important for their business outcomes, when what they're trying to reach actually requires them to make that level of investment. So that brings up a lot of options for us about how to make it worth their while, sooner.
It's an excellent transition to, I think, the topic that you will be addressing afterward. You know, one thing is fascinating, you know, when I met Alan and we have the first exchange during the SB COP, and I start to see some of the elements, you know, of the data that he has. He was saying, look, there is only 23 or 24, if I'm not remember, 1 out of 8 workers already can consider that have this equivalent with green skills. The demand is around 22 million. The offer was around 12. So look at the gaps that we might be creating on this. And basically these gaps are huge opportunities, as you say. And the other thing is exactly what he's saying. I mean, we talk about certainly there are some skills, few of them that need to be, you know, high-end. But then you have others that are more on the reskilling the workforce, upskilling those workforce and preparing them. And we have a lot of examples of this with electricians, right? Because at the end of the day, we do need electricians that are basic, I would say, you know, skills that you need. The only difference is those electricians now need to be also skilled on digital aspect, right? So how you make sure that this electricians, these plumbers that we need, for the future are good using these technologies that are available, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And Schneider has been as you know, has been a real leader in this area, in that reskilling. You're not alone. Many other people who are working in renewable energy and energy delivery have also been making the same kinds of investments in their existing workforces.
Very good.
And we have to work more together.
So, Gilles, back to you. Probably, you have been leading in some of this. You are from the creation and the design of this program. As I said previously, you have been attending 15 COPs, in the last year. So tell us a little bit more about these programs and how you see the benefit of the company for this.
Thank you. My first comment, why do we have this discussion today in this place? Just to congratulate Rafael, because it's not the first year that we speak about youth skills in the COP, but just during the 2 or 3 last COPs, we had several new topics, one about just transition, and second about skilling the people, the youth, the others. And I'm very happy that Rafael, in the group of SD30, leads the work stream about skills and transition. In fact, I'm uncomfortable with the question. And if I may, at the beginning, I would like to share with you something out of the box. The first thing is that we have, in a very specific turning point, we have 1.5 billion people between 15 and 25 around the world. It's the first time, and it's the last time. Never we had such number of youth, and never we will have such number of youth in the future. But we need to be adapted to this reality. How do we train this youth? Do we organize the system, the architecture of training, when we know that tomorrow we will reduce the number of youth? None of the question. The second question, I'm very surprised that it's very difficult to share with the public sector, with the companies too, the fact that you use is the future of everybody. That they don't prepare their own future, they prepare my future. Because if we are not able to transfer skills, to get jobs, to give the opportunity to be entrepreneur, to lead to the youth today, certainly in 20, 30 years, that will be a problem for everybody, for the youth, yes, but for everybody. Then we have to keep in mind 1.5 billion people between 15 and 25. In the same time, but I will step to the data, 20 million of youth never will go to school. 20 million. 60 million of youth stop to be at school after when they are 10, 11 or 12. Each time it's more that we kill. Because we know that the innovation, it's a question of youth. Never, the 20 last year, something which changed the life of many millions of people was in the head of someone more than 50 or 40. And less than 40. Then we need to give to this youth the opportunity to refresh all the things, to think differently. If we don't do that, never we will organize the transition. And last but not least about this topic, I prefer to say that we have to bring the skills than to speak about green skills. So for example, when we are speaking about electrician, is it green skill or not? But one thing that we know, for example, for Africa, today only 20% of African population has access to electricity. Why? Question of innovation? No, we have the solution. Question of money? In fact, we can find the investment. But we don't have people to implement electricity in the villages. Yes, we have people to have electricity in the big cities in Africa. But if we would like to disseminate mini grids, many other things, first, to provide a better life for the people. Second, to support these youth to have a job for themselves, to build a family. And third, to reduce carbon emission, to take care to the world and so on. We need to have more electrician. In this case, it's a question of green skills. It's why I think we can mean all the skills. Here we have a good news, which is numeric, which is digital, training with augmented reality and so on. It's not enough, but we know something. If we are not able to disseminate many trainings by digital manner, never we will solve the question. I'm not sure that is enough to solve the question, but without that, it's not possible to solve this question. It's why in Schneider Electric, we close a step to have trained 1 million people at the bottom of the pyramid in the field of electricity. And we would like for the 5 next year to have a next step with 5 million people, with the partnership that we have with 400 organizations around the world, but with the designing of new training to train the teachers, to train about new technology, digital, the shift to renewable energy, and with that, with some new partners, certainly we will have an impact.
Thank you, Gilles. I think these numbers, and to avoid to stay on the theory, you give the number, you give a concrete example how we have been doing the company in many areas, not only in Africa, but here in South America, also Brazil in particular. But I would like to listen from cases. When we did this SB Club, we gathered more than 60 concrete examples. And we have selected carefully 2 of them, and I would like to give the floor to my colleagues here. So I think I can start. I don't know if it's Bruna first who come. Bruna de Carvalho. No, Veronica. Sorry. So I would say Veronica first with the case. Yes, please. I give you. You want to be here? As you will.
Well, Gia, thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity. So thank you to Schneider, thank you SBCOP. We're absolutely thrilled to be here and have been part of this tremendous gathering of shining lights across the world. So I'm Veronica Nyan-Jones. I'm working with the IFC, the private sector arm of the World Bank Group. And we're all here focused on private capital mobilization and green jobs at this COP. So our Green Bonds Technical Assistance Program has been building the financial ecosystem to fuel sustainability and resilience across emerging markets. We've trained over 2,000 professionals from financial institutions, 41% of them women and growing. And across these 400 financial institutions, representing 83 emerging market countries in the world, we have produced these sustainable finance champions that are filled with passion and change maker attributes. So they have become part of this lifelong alumni network. And I know this because I'm still in their WhatsApp groups where they are sharing lots of information with each other personally and professionally and deal making together years later. So this group of incredible sustainable finance champions have very often gone on to be the first movers within their country. So creating the very first sustainability bond in Madagascar, delivering the very first social bond in Tanzania to support SMEs, all from the skills that they have gained not only through this capacity building program, but also through the relationships that they have supporting one another in similar contexts. So to date, the overall impact, this alumni group has gone on to issue over $20 billion of sustainable finance across early emerging markets. And they not only are issuing finance directed towards sustainability and resilience outcomes that we're all seeking here, but they often then become champions and change makers within their institutions, building entire teams to drive sustainability financing. And very often they get promoted or poached to other organizations. But what is most important is that they don't leave. They don't leave the mission that we're all in. I finally want to thank our partners from Switzerland, Sweden, and Luxembourg, because these finance meccas really are joining forces with IFC and a lot of different banks and financiers across emerging markets to make sure that together with mentoring and capacity building, we are really building the Southern financial force of the future and growing local capital markets, which we all know is the engine for country-driven jobs and resilience. So thank you so much, SBCOP.
Thank you really very much, Veronica. A great example, I think, align a little with what you have been saying, Gilles. It's not a matter of money. You know, when we need it, we know where to find it. Although we only put 0.5% of the total, amount of money that is dedicated to climate and to everything, is only 0.5% to education. But you manage to get this money when you have the real cases and you have impact in part of the world that are in need and creating value to these people. And also, thank you very much. Great case. Okay, so now I would like to call Gabriela. No, I'm sorry, I'm confused with the two guys. Ingrid now. Ingrid, sorry. From GIZ. So Ingrid, you did a fantastic job. We have been partnering also in different aspects in other parts of the world. So I would like to give you the space now to share with all of us what is about your case.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you for the opportunity to present to the SBCOP actually a joint project together with Schneider Electric, GIZ, and the Vietnamese institutions that was actually awarded by the respective SBCOP. Let me give you a little bit of a context. In the past, Vietnam covered its energy needs from hydropower, natural gas, and from coal. And since the economy is growing, the energy demand is increasingly very, very fast. Yeah, okay. Vietnam was dependent on fossil fuels and hydropower, but the economy is growing fast, and they were now looking for a different energy supply. And the Vietnamese government is aiming for a green transformation and wants to be carbon neutral by 2040. So this makes the Vietnamese market very attractive for companies who work in the field of renewable energy technologies. And this leads also to an increasing demand for skilled technicians. That means for skilled workers who can plan, install, maintain, and repair renewable energy systems. And this is where our joint project comes in, and the scheme that the German government has been promoted. This is called Develop PP. And Develop PP means that certain endeavors, together private sector and international institutions, get a subsidy really to build up new ecosystems that haven't been there in the market yet. In Vietnam, the government, vocational institutions, and private sector companies, including Schneider Electric, Fester Didactic, and the Vietnamese Industry Building Services, as well as GIZ, join forces to modernize technical training for the renewable energy sector. Actually, only after 2 years, we have achieved amazing results. First, we have built up an ecosystem of new institutions that deal with training in these new technology sectors. We have linked 13 institutions. We have equipped teachers and training institutions with modern technology, and we have trained more than 300 teachers that can now actually spread their knowledge across the country. But this is not enough. Actually, the model was so successful that it's now scaled up to Mongolia and other countries of the region. So what is the recipe of this German scheme, Develop PP? First, when you do actually training and vocational training, you have to work with the private sector because they understand the market, they understand technologies, and they know what should be changed in the curriculum and the education system. So never walk alone in this respect, but bring the private sector to the table, listen and change the system that is in place. So this is also our philosophy at GIZ. GIZ is the German international implementing agency working for the German government and the European Union. We are present in more than 120 countries around the world. And it's for us a must to work with the private sector. I'm Ingrid Hof, the Managing Director. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you very much, Ingrid. And indeed, you have been also a great advocate of this working group, and with your team also providing a lot of good examples. So thank you and congrats to this. So basically, when we listen to all of them, you see what is common across this. So we're talking about education, we're talking about skills, we're talking about innovation at the same time. So and inclusion. Look at the different countries that you know we are putting together. Now the big challenge that I observe, and I would like now to listen from you guys, is how to scale this. You know, how, because we are in a pressing moment. You talk about you are in a critical moment. The gap continue to be, and the need for reduction of the emissions is there. So now we need scale, and we need scale at speed. Okay, so I would like to probably, you know, to not go too far and too theoretical, and let's concentrate in Brazil, because you have been spending time here, all of you, although you don't live, but Maria Emilia, in Brazil, I know you are very, very aware about Brazil. So I would like to ask you, what are the most critical skills that you have observed in Brazil and South America to accelerate this and probably also take advantage and scaling this? Let me start with you, Maria Emilia. Let's change, okay? So let's go with Alan first.
All right. So let's see. So there is actually an organization that's operating here in Brazil, which I think is a good example. It's Iberdrola, is that right?
Yes. Iberdrola, indeed.
And basically,
Neo Energia here. Neo Energia.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, sorry, thank you. And they, I think, sort of present an initial model. Basically, they need to be able to hire electricians again. And this is actually creating new jobs for new electricians rather than retraining ones. They have something called the School for Electricians, where they work with nonprofits. Those nonprofits identify women who are good candidates to become electricians. The School for Electricians trains them, and then people who need electricians then hire those electricians, including Iberdrola. So it's actually a very powerful system for training and bringing new people into that workforce. The thing I want to call out about it is that it is a partnership, which includes a corporation which has lots of strong need for electricians, a training availability, whether they're being provided by Iberdrola or by third parties, and then nonprofits who represent the people who are actually on the ground, particularly local solutions. This is actually a very powerful combination. This group of nonprofits who represent, doesn't have to be an NGO, I suppose, but typically it's NGOs who represent people on the ground who are interested in participating in the economic output of the investment that's going to be made, training providers, and then companies who are going to take advantage of the results of that training. That combination is actually something which I do believe can scale pretty effectively. I think it's very hard to be able to build a training program at the country level. Extremely hard, and we've seen many opportunities, except for Germany, who has 600 years of experience building that particular kind of capability. It's very tough. So the local opportunity gives you a very place-based approach, which takes strong responsibility for the people who are there on the ground. It takes, it focuses and connects directly to a particular project, which has particular needs. Those things basically can operate at a small scale. And I'm happy to say we have a new technology which we can all take advantage of, which might be able to scale up from local rather than down from the top. Typically, we've been limited to being able to plan down from the top. I think there are all kinds of concerns that we should be having around artificial intelligence. But one thing I would tell you it is good at is bringing together hundreds of thousands, millions of independent projects and rendering them understandable to somebody who's looking at it from the outside. And that can apply to these projects as well. So we may have an enabler which is only 2 years old, which can actually make something like this happen. I think it's a good area of focus for people who are looking to innovate in this area, specifically innovating to scale.
I think it's a great example, and I know this from Iberdrola. And funny enough, I was discussing last night with the CEO of Enel here in Brazil, and they have a program also. So the point is, we have individual companies with programs that are addressing their needs. The point is we need to put this together and to make it at the scale, because they are the same needs. And I can tell you, the need we have in Brazil, we have it in Indonesia. And the need that we have in Indonesia, we have it also in other parts of the world. So this is exactly, how we put this all together. And I can only agree that it's through collaboration, through platforming, and making sure that, the people really take this as an advantage for their industry and not only for their own companies, right? So it's very good. Maria Emilia.
Yeah, and just complementing, I completely agree. And also how we can bring the workers that are today in the industrial areas, so on their work nowadays, and how we can make it in large scales, and also for the vulnerable communities that we have here. That's another gap. We have a huge gap, for example, in Amazonia, which they are not even, they don't even have the capacity of industrial capacity nowadays. So we have a huge gap in terms of electricians, like you've already mentioned, and it's also part of the outcome of the work. But how can we move them from what they're doing today, and the gap that we have, for example, in the communities that we have around Brazil? So we need to think how orchestrate this transition. I think it's one of the most important points, as well as how this transition will not only impact, have the positive impact that we want in terms of GPT, in terms of revenues and outcomes even for the workers. So it's I think the gap nowadays is for all the transition, it's how and who will orchestrate this. And it's great to know that, and we know that Germany has capacity on that, and that's why GIZ is so important for us here. But how we're going to be able to do that in the scale and fast that we need to be in Brazil to really lead this transition with all the natural resource that we have.
When we are here, very often at the end of a COP, we say it's difficult to see the partnership between public sector, the definition of the people, the decision of the people who are here to negotiate the end of the COP, private sector, in the private sector between companies. Each company is here to influence, to push a very precise topic. NGOs, very often against the companies. I think the topic that we put on the table in this discussion is certainly one of the unique topics where we can be together in a win-win attitude between private, public sector, the companies in competition, companies, NGOs, public sector. And I think we have to reinforce that. We have a lot of win about this topic for reskilling about people, because we are speaking about the skills for the youth. But for many, in each generation, we need to reskill the people, because in 10 years, the skills will be very different, and we have to embark all the people to be actors in the transition. We have a very beautiful project in Amazonia with a boat to go from a village to another village and to train people 6 months. I think we have to continue that. But the first thing for me, it's we need to strategize such type of partnership. It's not the series of the COP of the responsibility of the companies and so on. It's something that we have to understand. When we do that, we are close to our own interest. I can say that. It's not only philanthropy because we are a good guy and we would like to contribute to training. No, we need to strategize that. And for me, the problem that we face today is more or less the problem that we faced 20 years ago about climate. Some action about climate, some vision. We have strategized the topic to understand that the sense of emergency in this topic and that we will all win if we take care to climate, even if it's difficult. The good news, we have to be in the same dynamic for the training and for the youth, and certainly that will be easier.
Yes, there is one quote that I love from one person from Deloitte that is our innovation leader, that innovation is much more about an elegant integration than an invention. And I think that's what we need nowadays. We need to, the innovation will come from integration.
You know, this has been fantastic, just listening to you and trying to project on this. I would say I'm a traditional optimistic, right? Because I have this opportunity. I realize all the challenges that you put when you look back, but I see the conversations now. The fact that putting this in the agenda as a priority, the fact that we actually decide that the green skills and green jobs was a transversal to all the different verticals that we have. You know, there is no energy transition without people. Let's be clear. There is no nature-based, you know, evolution in the business. There is no bioeconomy. There's nothing if we don't have the people skilled for this. And the figures talk by themselves. We have a gap. And also these examples that you shared with us. Another is there is money out of there. There is business also opportunities because we are creating value. These people are generating, as we say in Brazil, renda. So they have revenues, and these revenues is also taking up this. So I would like to conclude more or less our discussion here. And you know, business people are very pragmatic. And at the end, they want to measure this. We want to measure because we are fanatic of KPIs, right? So basically, if I ask you this very simple question, how do we measure the real impact of these green training programs in terms of employability, okay, in terms of innovation, and in terms of social transformation?
I can start.
Yeah.
No, I think it's I think somehow we've already raised some of it. It's not only about the return on investment on specific projects, but how the investment is impacting the community and the value chains. So it's how many jobs are we generating? It's not about the performance of the company, of the performance of the employees. This is a very narrow view, right? Point of view. So we need to bring a more holistic view, a more the positive impact on the communities and on the generation of jobs and on the higher incomes and greater inclusion for workers. So I think we really need to measure in a different pathway, but as you always say, there is no free lunch. So we also need to understand how we are generating new jobs opportunity internally in order to understand if we're generating new business models, new outcomes, new incomes, and so on. So I think it's more looking to the perspective of new business, also connecting with the generation of new jobs. And we can see that we are creating 3 times more jobs in the economy than we use it to do it before. I think this is one measure, and we can bring this to the perspective of each one of the companies and the communities as well.
Very good. Jill?
Only one word, electric. We try to work about this topic with a night school in France, HEC, in order to be able to measure the impact. Today we measure the number of people that we train, and we are very happy with that. We have trained 1 million people. I think it's good to do that, and that is the beginning. But it's very interesting to have a vision about what's happened for this youth 6 months after, 1 year after, 2 or 3 years after. It's not possible to do that with all the youth because it's very expensive, because we don't keep the link, because we don't organize training to build such type of link. But sure, we need to progress on that because it's a unique manner to enrich the program. I agree with you. I don't have the solution, but sure, we need to progress on this dimension.
So it is expensive to measure how well those things work. We at LinkedIn might actually have a solution for you coming up on some of those things. I'm not making any product announcements today, but we'll see. I will say that one of the threads of conversation which I've seen throughout COP and in the intervening time is, does it benefit us to see if we can change the lens around climate progress to one of economic progress? So is it possible to begin talking about it in terms of growth, in terms of economic activity, in terms of poverty reduction, in terms of all the things we use to measure our economies? Because not only is climate brand a little tarnished right now, but in the end, effort around this, to your point, not only does it create more jobs, but it creates whole communities of economies around the work that you actually do. I was talking to the CEO of Belém, which is a mining corporation, the other day, and the fascinating thing, they have basically, with the mines they have put here in Brazil, they have installed hospitals, they've installed clinics, they've basically built up that local community. And of course, that has been a magnet for an additional layer of economic opportunity that sits on top of it. And that in turn builds additional economic opportunity. So with people who are actually taking these climate-oriented jobs and working on these projects, they should bring with them economic growth, especially in places, as you were mentioning, perhaps in Africa, where they haven't had access to electricity at all. Electricity is fundamental to the initial development of economic opportunity. If we can unlock, through skills in those communities, the ability for them to electrify the work they do, that economy is going to grow. So in the end, that's very much how I would like to measure it.
It's funny. I also had the opportunity we had a breakfast discussion with the CEO of PAINEL, right? And fair enough, Gustavo was saying, we have a program where we want to take out of poverty 500,000 people, but take out of poverty in a sustainable and a structural way. The only way to take people out of poverty is through education, right? And guess what? He said, look, the only thing I know to do, I know how to do is mining, right? So to mine, I need people qualified with different skills. And these skills, I know what I need. I know the demand based on the needs I do have. But I also am doing this business in a certain area. So how I can go to them, to educate them, to have the possibility to have a work with the company or with whatever company around, okay, to then take these people, you take one of these people out of this poverty, they put at least 7 other persons. You know what I mean? So how powerful this education is. And he said it, and I like very much, Lisbeth is here. She was always saying, we need to be pragmatic, based on the demand and not based on the effort that we want to do. Right?
And I would only say that someone asked me the other day about the informal economy and how well these things work in the informal economy. And the surest way to formalize the informal economy is broad-based economic opportunity, because then there's reason that then basically all the services which flow and drag people into the formal economy spring up around those populations. So economic development and growth is like if you can drive it at scale, you can attack many problems simultaneously. So I think we have a great opportunity doing this. I mean, there have been lots of times in the past where we haven't had such a clear reason to train people to do stuff. But climate is a great reason to train people to do stuff. And it's an opportunity to build that economy everywhere in the world.
It's a fascinating remark. One of the big challenges we have, is all this migration, not only from country to country, but also in the same country, to the big cities. And, again, talking about the example of mining, imagine if you generate this richness and this wealth in the areas, people will not go to other big metropolis. They don't need to go to Sao Paulo, they don't need to go to Rio, they don't need to go to Jakarta, they don't need to, because they will have the possibility to fly where they are based or where they have. So I would like to listen probably.
And just one point,
Yes.
This is very important for sustainable cities as well. We were talking yesterday about that. So there is a huge impact of how we are bringing people to their urban centers. And this is one of the ways of helping the overflow, let's say, that we have on the urban cities right now.
Very good. Any final remark from your side? Any final thought that you want to stay with this audience?
No, just one point. I really believe that we need to bring people to the center of the discussions. I think this is one of the points why we're taking too long, because we always believe that, and we're talking today, me and Rosani, and we always believe that everything is around technology. And okay, we need technology, but it's about people. We are talking about the planet. It's because people. So I think we sometimes forget that. We sometimes forget about when we are designing our strategy. We need to think about how we are consuming the world, the impact that we are generating, but look to how we are going to relate and to live in this world. I think it's much more about that.
To conclude, I would like to finish about one thing. We spoke a lot about digital in training, and it's true that with digital, we can have new course, we can disseminate the training for many people in many different languages, to reduce the price, to have an upgrade of the competencies, and to be close to the innovations that we have today. But training, it's a question of relationship too, and relationship between people. We have to innovate, to find a new model so you can in the same time organize human relationships, and in the same time to take care to technology, especially digital, to elevate the level of training. But about that, we need to transfer the vision of everybody that he could be a teacher, a mentor or a coach. At Schneider Electric, we have a specific program, the name is volunteering. More than 15% of the Schneider Electric people are contributing in this program with their own skills in order to build a relationship with the youth who, perhaps because in the family they don't have access to training, they don't have access to the vision of different jobs. It could be in the relationship with the youth, open the window, give them vision, find the real interest for the job of the job. And just in the reality, we don't speak about digital to say, oh, tomorrow we don't need people, we will have another manner to train the youth. No. Perhaps we can build a total different system where in our companies and everywhere we can give the feeling to everybody when it can be involved in the manner to support the youth for their own future. And if we do that, we give the chance to everybody to upgrade his own skills, because when you support someone, if you do that in a good manner, yourself, you learn a lot.
You're not agree more, Alan? Yeah.
It's fun.
It's fun.
And it's fun, yes. Listen, just to respect the time, I really want to thank you all. Really, it's inspiring. It has been a beautiful journey, not only this panel, but the whole SBCAP with the discussion, the rich discussion that we have been having, and it really gives hope because I think we are getting to the points that will make the difference into this. I would like to, one takeaway that I would like to us take here. So technology alone, you said it, technology is not alone, will not make the changes, will not make the transformations that we need. But for this sustainable future that we want to bring, we need to, people, and people is about education, right? I had the opportunity when we took at this, as any business people, you want to identify business opportunities. And where I'm running South America here, and they say, look, in this energy transition, is this a new landscape. We all know those that are based in Brazil. That is when you talk about energy, you also talk about the bioenergy. So I had the opportunity to work with the colleagues of Systemic and to better understand the bioenergy, ecosystem and the possibilities of Brazil. And to make long story short, we arrived to the conclusion that only this segment can create up to 760,000 jobs. Imagine this. So the potential that we have now to have this and integrate these people into the workforce, we need to prepare them. Otherwise, the bottleneck will be there, and the possibilities for this segment to drive will not be there. So I'm extremely motivated, because here's just one example, and you can go to many others in the mining industry, in the data center industry, in the nature-based, when we're talking about bioeconomy. So I think it's clear to us that these green skills, we don't want to be a niche. We need to be a mainstream, a real mainstream for all the businesses, for the governments also, and making sure that we continue to work together. So I want to really thank you, Alan, Gilles, and Maria Emilia for this very good panel, and I thank you all for your attention.